welcome everyone to this penultimate session of Yes to Life No to Mining's global gathering. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, you're welcome. And we're going to start with a very short video, just a little bit of housekeeping, so that you know and feel confident to join and fully participate in this meeting. So over to you, Joshua, to share the video.
Hi there, my name's Natalie Lowry. I'm one of the regional contact people for the Yes to Life No to Mining Global Network. And I'm just going to do a couple minutes of housekeeping to make sure that you're able to access the sessions in our virtual platform. So when you enter the virtual platform, you'll be in the lobby, which is like our homepage. And to enter into the sessions, go to Program, and then click the session. I'm going to click Defending the Defenders. And then the live stream should come up. Once you're in here, make sure you click Join by Computer Audio. And if you want to enlarge the screen, just in the top right-hand corner here, just go full screen. If you want to move out of that, just escape. And finally, if you're really stuck and you're struggling in the platform, you can always reach out to us through this chat box down the bottom here. So just click on that and you can leave a message in English, Spanish or French, and one of our regional contact people will get back to you and see if we can help you out. So enjoy the sessions and also enjoy the virtual platform. Make sure to go back to the lobby, to the homepage, and launch your photos. Take a photo of yourself and leave a solidarity message. And also you can send messages to other people who are participating by just pressing Start Chat, leaving a message, and the private chats will come up here. If someone has left you a message, you can see in the corner here, notifications, and you can see if any new messages have come up. And that's it from me. Thank you and enjoy the global gathering. Hi there, my name's Natalie Lowry. I'm one of the regional...
Thanks very much, Nat, and thanks, Josh, who is doing some of the tech today. And thanks to the whole tech and interpretation team. I'll thank you again at the end, but thank you for the work you're about to do. This, as I mentioned before, is the penultimate, so not the final session of the Yes to Life No to Mining Global Gathering, which has been going on for the last few days. This session will be immediately followed by a solidarity session and a cultural celebration, which I'm really looking forward to, and I really invite you to stay on for. But this session is entitled Beyond Extractivism, and we're here really to talk about the yes to life in Yes to Life No to Mining. In the simplest terms, that's what we're here to talk about today. We're not here to talk about one particular struggle or even just mining, but really the pattern of assumptions, of relationships, and of technologies that allow the plunder of our communities, our lands, and our waters all over the world. We're here to talk about what has come to be more popularly known over the last few years as extractivism. And it's my pleasure to introduce this session and our speakers. And I want to just start by giving a few thoughts on what that means, what extractivism means. The etymology of extractivism, the origin of the word that we're using today, comes from two parts. One is extract, which is from a Latin word, which means to draw out or remove from, and ismus, which is a Greek word, which is to take the side of. So when we talk about extractivism, what we're really talking about is how different people and groups and organizations take the side of extracting from the world, extracting from other people. We've all seen and experienced the many ways in which that can happen. The the way different groups in our societies take the side of extracting from the world, whether that be politicians who side with extractive industries over the citizens they're meant to serve, corporations who choose to extract and commodify the earth to make profits, or paramilitary groups who choose to align themselves with these industries in order to fund conflict and violence. In terms of mining, we might define extractivism something like this: that extractivism is an economic and developmental model that is fueled by the unsustainable exploitation of nature, whether that be metals, minerals, or fossil fuels, or land, water, or even other human beings. It's a model that is enabled by the assumption that the earth and other less powerful people are resources. They're resources to be exploited for the benefit of other humans, more powerful people, in terms of their position and their privilege in society, not necessarily their abilities as humans. And that extraction, that exploitation can happen without limit or consequence. And really, whilst this network is about saying no to mining, it's also about rejecting extractivism in all of its forms, whether that be agrarian extractivism of food from the land without giving back, or metal extractivism, as we usually talk about. Of course, today and in this space, we're really focusing on mining, and we're focusing on mineral and metal mining rather than fossil fuels entirely. And in terms of mining alone, the statistics are very dire. There was a recent study which showed that 100,000 square kilometers at the very least, and those are just mine sites, not the large expansion of impacts that come from each mine site. 100,000 square kilometers of the Earth's surface, an area larger than Austria, larger than South Korea, larger than Guatemala, Liberia, or Newfoundland, is under extraction for mining alone. Now, that area is set to expand dramatically in the years to come unless we take a dramatically different path due to the growing demand for minerals and metals from renewable energy, from advanced military technology, robotics, and the digitalization of industry. And our contention in Yes to Life, No to Mining is that things don't have to be this way. These are choices, these are political decisions, and extractivism and these logics of removal, of taking the side of extraction, are not the thoughts that we should be having at this moment in history. This session today, I'm very glad to be joined by some great speakers for, is all about imagining the road we could take, imagining a world beyond extractivism, a world in which we live in a restorative relationship with each other and our living planet, where we choose to take the side of giving more than we take, not only to live sustainably, but to repair the damages that have already been done by centuries of plunder. We are going to hear today from our different speakers how this can be done, how this future might be realized by both protecting and safeguarding the genuinely sustainable, low impact and restorative practices that already exist and which are practiced by many peoples all over the world. And also by reimagining societies that have come to take the side of extraction and removal and changing their direction of travel. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our speakers for today in the order in which they're going to speak. First, we have Representative Zarate from the Philippines. After him, we will hear from Luis Sanchez from Ecuador. Then Marta Cond from Spain, who's based currently in Australia. And then Ramon Balcazar, who is based in Chile, but working across Latin America. You can all also participate, and we really encourage you to do so. The main ways you can do that are through the comments and question and answer here on Zoom, or if you're using the Feedloop platform, you'll see above your video feed, there's a tab called Engage, and we've posed a question in there for everyone to answer. And before I hand over, we'll have a video address from Representative Zarate to begin with. I want to remind you that if you would like to stay on with us after this session for a solidarity and cultural celebration, we really encourage you to do that, because I think we could all agree that a world beyond extractivism includes a lot more partying and celebration and a lot more solidarity. So I'm going to hand over. Joshua's going to screen for us Representative Zarate's testimony, and I'll pop back in after our speakers have contributed to facilitate the question and answer. Thank you.
Greetings of solidarity to all fellow defenders joining us today at the Yes to Life, No to Mining Global Gathering. Thank you for inviting us to share about our experience in trying to bring our vision of a post-extractive future into tangible reality through a proposed legislation that aims to radically reorient the mining industry in our country. First, let me briefly explain the framework of our vision. It is grounded on the long-standing patriotic and democratic people's struggle in the Philippines that is rooted in the then anti-colonial and currently anti-imperialist traditions of the Filipino people's movements. Having been trapped in a resource cursed by centuries of exploitation of our peoples and our natural resources by both foreign and corporate interests, we aim to reverse the export-oriented and import-dependent nature of a neoliberal mining extractivism in the country towards a self-reliant and needs-based economy. We thus envision the management of mineral resources as anchored on national industrialization, or the establishment and development of strategic Filipino industries to provide for the basic needs of the Filipino people. Under a program of national industrialization, vital and strategic enterprises such as the mining, quarrying, and minerals processing industries will be nationalized to build the strategic capacity of the state to manage our resource potential, of course, for the benefit of the Filipino people. Publicly owned mining will be planned and managed on the basis of public interest and will thus ensure the rights and development of local communities, minimize environmental and social impacts, and provide for the economic and social needs of the whole nation. In essence, the management and minerals based on national industrialization puts people and planet over profit. It is with this vision and through nationwide consultations with indigenous peoples, small farmers, workers, scientists, economists, and other sectors of Philippine society that we crafted House Bill number 254, or the People's Mining Bill, currently filed in our Congress. Now, at this juncture, let me walk you through some salient provisions of the People's Mining Bill. Sections 2 and 3 direct the formulation of a national industrialization program and mineral management plan, and its guiding principles of gearing the industry towards the raw materials needs of basic, medium, and heavy industries. It also provides appropriate support and protection for Filipino corporations, and it limits the entry of foreign corporations in the industry. Meanwhile, it also gears the industry towards the needs of agrarian reform and agricultural modernization. It clarifies the priority of land use for water and food, long-term economic planning, and it also provides support, regulation, and provision of alternatives to small-scale mines and other progressive policy directions. Meanwhile, in sections 34 and 36 of the bill, it creates the Multi-Sectoral Minerals Council to govern the mineralized corridors in our country. This council will serve as the core democratic mechanism to plan and manage mines where grassroots sectors, including the workers, the indigenous peoples, have adequate representation. The creation of the council ensures the democratic representation, consultation, and participation of various sectors in the planning, implementation, management, monitoring, and even in the closure of mining operations in the country. Then, as a concrete expression also of the people's right to say no, Section 37 defines a strict no mining zones, and it gives power to the MSMCs, or the multi-sectoral mining councils, to define whether or not mineralized lands shall be open to mining. Meanwhile, there is Section 44 of the bill, which also requires an environmental and social impact assessments and mitigation plans, which ensures that due diligence is done not only over environmental impacts, but also human rights, socioeconomic and cultural impacts, among others. In Section 107, it also requires mining companies to establish a calamity, climate, and human rights protection fund that shall be used for responding to or mitigating the effects of calamities, natural disasters, but more importantly, to human rights violations, including militarization, displacement, and forced evacuation in any part of the country in relation to mining activities. Then there is also the entire chapter on access to justice. It is found on chapter 13, where access to justice defines human rights obligations of both the state and businesses, including accountabilities over human rights violations, the use of paramilitary or military forces for so-called investment defense, and protections against strategic lawsuits against public participation, or SLAPs. There are much more provisions that can be found in the People's Mining Bill. And we will make sure to provide the organizers a copy of this proposed policy to give everyone the opportunity to review it. Now, before our Congress went on recess recently to give way for the campaign period for our national elections, the People's Mining Bill reached the furthest point in its legislative process after it was consolidated with other proposed mining policies pending in Congress. It was then historically passed by the House Committee on Natural Resources, which paves the possibility of it being presented for plenary debates and consideration before the current 18th Congress adjourns on June 30. Although the passage of this bill may now seem impossible, with our Congress being dominated by dynastic landlords and bureaucrat capitalists, nonetheless, it has served as a rallying point for the national resistance against mining plunder. The People's Mining Bill has become a reference point for articulating the people's alternatives and a blueprint for local communities to assert their own democratic will and governance. I hope that our experience in trying to concretize the people's post-extractivist visions is useful for our fellow defenders resisting foreign, large-scale mining powers everywhere in the world. And we would be glad to gain insights from you to further develop this living, breathing document we call People's Mining Bill. Maraming salamat at mabuhay kayo. Long live international solidarity.
Well, thank you to Representative Zarate for outlining the People's Mining Bill for us there, and to all of our colleagues in the friends in the Philippines for bringing that to us. They've done so much over the years to bring these issues into the spotlight, and also just to win support for them within the political arena. So thank you for that inspiration. Our next speaker is going to be Luis Sanchez, who is from the Amazonian community of the Cóndor Mirador mountain range. He's an indigenous leader, and we're very, very happy and lucky to have him with us today. So Luis, I will pass that over to you, and we look forward to hearing what you have to share with us.
Mi ponencia va a estar basada en
My experience is based on the conflict with the mining industry in the Ecuadorian territory, in the province of Zamora Chinchipe,
el sector de la Cordillera del Cóndor Mirador.
This took place in the Andean lookout point.
Entonces aquí, para empezar un poco
To start,
poniendo en contexto,
to put everything into context a little bit further,
muy antiguo,
this is a very ancient conflict.
el año 95 que concluye
This started in
la
1995 when a war took place between Ecuador and Peru.
la gran minería.
This is when the big mining companies came in 1998.
Y se posiciona en el territorio
They
en
took
el año 2000.
the position here in our territory in
A
the year
partir de esta
2000.
época ha causado
Since this
daños
time period,
sociales, ambientales,
the damage has been caused on a social level, on a community level, and on an economic level in the entire country.
el daño más grave,
The biggest problem and the biggest damage that was caused,
el proyecto minero
this mining project,
implementado en el país
it was implemented in this country in a very violent way, without any consultation or any information,
sea la
without
empresa
any
que tome las
dialogue.
decisiones
It's been the company that's taken all the decisions, and the government,
central
the central
deja en la
government,
indefensión a todo el pueblo del territorio.
leaves all the
En
rights
este sentido,
of the
se
pueblo
ha
to one
dado,
side.
Desalojos violentos en el territorio en el
There's
año 2000.
been so much violence that took place in our country in 2000 and 2015 and 2016.
Desalojo violento a dos mayores
The major
menores de edad,
evacuation of violent evacuations had taken place in those days. The last one took place
en
in
abril del 2020.
April of this year.
Esto nos tiene muy preocupados
This has us very worried.
porque el territorio está concesionado con
This
población,
territory
con
has people that live
agua,
here, and it has
con
important
bosques
resources, water,
alrededor,
forest.
y en medio de esto,
And in the middle of all
el
this,
Estado y sobre todo la empresa
the
se
state
quiere
and the mining
continuar con
company
los
wants to
procesos de
continue with these
desalojo de manera
processes
violenta porque
of
los
violent
mineros
evacuation
están
because the
ejerciendo el derecho
miners
a la resistencia, es decir,
are resisting
aparte del
our
derecho que tienen
rights
de
to say no.
exigir que se respete los derechos de los
This is
pueblos
like to
indígenas,
say that the right of the
también
indigenous
es que
of the
estos
indigenous
pueblos no
people
tenemos
are being
dónde ir.
ignored. We have nowhere to
Es
go.
decir, requerimos de este territorio para
We
nuestra
need
supervivencia,
this territory
para
for our right
nuestro
livelihood,
modo de vida propio
for our
como pueblo.
lifestyle, our proper
Entonces,
lifestyle.
en estas condiciones nos tiene muy alarmados
These
porque
conditions are causing us
la
so much
violencia
alarm right
continúa
now.
y
The
el
violence
Estado
continues,
es juez y parte
and the state
en este sentido
is
porque
using their
inclusive
legal
fuerza para
force
que
against us.
desatienda estos acciones que hemos presentado como
The
comuneros por
Actions
la
that
violación
we've tried to
sistemática de
organize and
derechos
like the
del pueblo,
systematic
derechos
violence
de
that's taken place
naturaleza
against us
que ha
and against
ocurrido
nature,
acá
and
en
that
nuestro
has
territorio
happened in our
por la intervención
territory
del
because
consorcio minero chino,
due to the
que
Chinese
casi
mining
casi es
companies.
100% chino.
The major part of the
un
mining that's
consorcio
taking place
privado
right now is a
que
consortium, a private consortium
le
that's from
interesa
China.
únicamente acumulación de dinero
The only thing that they're
y
interested is in money.
no respeta los derechos.
They don't respect our
Entonces,
rights.
esto es lo que nos preocupa porque
This is what has
al
us so
violar un
worried
derecho
right
se está
now.
violando muchísimos
They're
derechos.
they're violating so many rights right now. And these rights that are interdependent are being violated. To understand this better, the project continues, it's continuing to grow, it's advancing. The government isn't doing anything to respect our rights, the rights of the village. The river has been taking a whole different route now. What they're trying to do is they're trying to make a deposit of mud, of solid wastes with heavy metals, using poison that's causing the death of our people. It's going to give acidic drainage into the rivers. It's going to cause this. There's, according to Steve Everman, a scientist that's very advanced in these things, made an evaluation, and he has stated that considering that the Andean mountain range is a natural mountain range, that it can be destroyed. Another thing that really worries us is that there's a natural phenomena that does take place here. And because that's due to the large amount of rain that falls on the side of the Andean mountain range. They are causing big landslides. This is natural. And the mining is going to increment this, and it's going to increment the solid waste and poison that's going to come down on the landslides. This is going to cause permanent contamination and pollution in the rivers, in the Kimi River, in the Zamora River, in the Santiago River, in the Marañón River. And this is all going to end up in the Amazon River. This is what we're worried about. The state is letting this project come in a perverse way.
And this is worrying because when we see this mining project, we see that it will generate a lot of money for the country's development. But they're really lying when they say this. In reality, there's a lot of corruption. That's the only guarantee. And if we keep allowing this harm to happen to the nature and to the indigenous people, to our water system, this is not a sustainable business even. It is actually a business at a loss. So that's why for us, we think the state is really in a bad way with this, stealing our natural resources, our country's riches, to take that to other countries like China who need that. And so it's really like a mafia project. This seems similar to narco-trafficking, trafficking drugs in a sense. This is produced because there are consumers. There's markets who demand that product. That's where that comes from. So we see the similarities. We see how they violate all of our rights They ruin our mountain ranges. They ruin our natural landscapes. They contaminate our water. They kill our people. And in exchange, those riches are taken to somewhere else in the world so that someone in some other place in the world can buy it. So that really has us very worried. We really want to sound the alarm about this. All of the cases that we're speaking about that relate to a violation of human rights and collective rights and a violation of natural resources, we have brought these to the attention of different administrative processes, and we haven't seen the right results because our government is actually part of it. So our legislature has not been a way forward with this. They're actually in control because they depend upon those contracts with mining industries. So we are not seeing progress with this route. The state is the same one that intervenes on behalf of justice. They're not allowing us to advance with anything in a transparent way. In 2019, we were able to put forth several lawsuits on behalf of all of the damage that has been caused. These lawsuits or actions, protective actions, are within the judicial system, but not moving forward. We're not getting an answer from them yet. So we really do have to reevaluate what are the scenarios, I think at an international level perhaps, to really find justice, whether it's in an international court of law or another forum. We've also made a lawsuit about what occurred in San Marcos in 2014. This we did bring to the Inter-American Court that works on human rights. We did get a response. They did admit that petition on our behalf was admitted to the court. So at least it is advancing somewhat. But over here, we see that our own justice forces are blind and mute, not responding. We see a lot of complicity and even a lot of intervention on behalf of the mining industry to corrupt our authorities so that they can keep them involved in this business in exchange for any kind of favor, again, with the goal that our authorities in Ecuador don't raise their voice against them, don't try to defend the rights of their people. So it is our own national government that we're up against. These and many other situations. For example, when it comes to work, that's another lie, that it's a job creation. No, that's just a way for them to try to push their project forward. Most of us who live in those territories are not finding anything there. So with this brief commentary, I would like to just leave it there so that we have time for questions and so that we can participate together in more ways. Thank you so much.
Gracias, Luis. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luis.
We appreciate your testimony. And you've told us exactly one of the key points here, which is that in many cases, going beyond extractivism is a matter of continuing practices that have allowed communities, indigenous communities, land-based communities to thrive for centuries, and just allowing those the space to continue to exist rather than disrupting them. So thank you, and there will be time for questions at the end. If you have questions and you don't want to forget them, you can put them into the question and answer at the bottom of the Zoom page or into the comments, and we'll collect them. We're going to now hear from Marta, and just to remind our speakers to speak nice and slowly for the interpreters. Thank you again to the interpreters for the great work. I enjoyed hearing what Luis was saying there, thanks to you, so I appreciate it. Marta, over to you.
Thank you, Hal. Thank you, the speakers, for this introduction. I am going to talk not so much about a conflict in itself or a fight. In my 10 minutes, I was going to talk about the title of the panel, A Future Without Extractivism. So I'm going to imagine how this future would be or could be. And so I hope you can come with me. You can imagine that with me, no? So in this future, we have the communities have a right to say no to unwanted projects. So this means that we have a lot more direct democracy, that communities are allowed to decide how to develop their own lands, their own territories. And so more than that, we hope that we can democratize resource extraction and the management of that resource extraction. We actually see this idea put forward by communities in Bolivia, with the concept of community-owned mining. This is put forward by CONAMAC, one of the main indigenous federations in Bolivia. So they want the recognition of the principles of shared property and co-management of natural resources between communities and the state. So in this imagined future, the state is free from the pressures of capitalist interest to extract, and it's free from its own dependency, for example, of mineral rents. So this means that we actually need to reduce the pressure for extractions. And how do we do this? How do we reduce this pressure for extraction? So we need a radical reorganization of the economy and society that includes a sharp reduction of material and energy consumption, especially in industrialized countries. And this is the central aim of degrowth, which is a movement of ideas that I follow. But you can call it many other ways, basically. But the central aim of degrowth is that you have to have this reduction in material and energy consumption. But the important thing is that this reduction is democratic and fair. Coincidentally, this is also what we need to fight climate change, because less energy consumed means also less CO2 emissions and less pressure to extract minerals for the future renewables. This is what Hal was also saying. So how is this future, So now I'm still imagining, because if you say we need to reduce energy and material consumption, this sounds quite bad, doesn't it? Especially in industrialized countries. It's like, it looks like we're going back to living in the caves, and living. And if you trying to convince people of this necessary future, and they only see fear and anguish, we're not going to generate this needed change. So we need to generate an horizon of desire, an horizon that this is actually going to be a better life. So how will this life be? This is a life with closer relationships with things and people near you. We work less hours per week, perhaps 4 days a week, maybe less hours along the day. Labor has been redistributed, so into cleaner and more socially useful sectors. Less industrialized, cars and all that. This has been massively reduced. We have a basic income because we might earn less. So we have a basic income or a care income for those people that care for others. We have a job guarantee, for example, for people, so we ensure they all have enough. And because we work less hours, we're going to have more spare time to care of us, of the people we love, of people around us. and also more time to actually participate in democratic processes. Because if there's more direct democracy, they ask us more what we want. We need to have time to learn about the issues that we're going to participate on, and actually attend the meetings and all that. So we're going to have more time for that. Because we work less, we're going to earn less. But that won't matter because there's going to be huge investments in public services, healthcare, education, affordable housing, transportation, utilities. And because we have less, we probably also buy less. But products will be of better quality, but we will have less of them, no? And then we will get attached to things, no? Many of you have probably felt this idea of the jumper that you've been wearing so much that you really like it. So we repair, we exchange, we share. This is important also because in this vision, we move away from indicators such as GDP. GDP only measures how the economy is doing, how much we buy and how much we sell. And for example, Russia now involved in this horrible war, the GDP is probably growing massively. Are the people happier in Russia? Probably not. Really very stressed out. So we need to look at other indicators, well-being indicators, ecology indicators to see how our environment is doing, as well as indicators, well-being, like happy, how is the society doing? Is it a happy society? This could become an objective. In Bhutan, this country landed there in the Himalayas, this is an objective, has been since the 90s. And that can be achieved, happiness can be achieved with much, much less stuff. We have here our society, especially industrialized societies, not so much our colleagues in the South. Our societies in Europe, Australia, North America, we are quite depressed and stressed out societies. And we have been moving away from happiness since the 70s. We keep getting more and more stuff, but people get more depressed. Too many choices. It's not the way to go. And so to achieve this, to achieve a happier society, we need to put life at the center of political decision making. Not the market, not the economy, but ensure that life is supported. And so this is in supporting its workers, supporting us so we can take care of others, ensure we have right to food, right to live in a safe place, right to housing, right to decide what we do with our own land, very crucial for activists, for the Yes to Life, Not to Mind activists. And the most important of all of these aspects is that we have a just world. It's a world with justice. So those that have more are the ones that have to pay for all these necessary changes because this is going to cost a lot of money. So we're talking about a green tax reform, taxing heavily all dirty industries, so they actually move to less dirty industries, and taxing heavily to all those rich people that have a lot of money. We're gonna need all this money to pay for all this. And at international level, there has to be a commitment for global justice. We have to repay all the ecological debt accumulated over the years of exploitation of all so-called southern countries. And we also need to we're also recognizing the ongoing coloniality of the so-called development ideas that have spearheaded Western science and Western domination and ways of thinking and seeing, where apparently you're going to be happier because you have a washing machine and a TV and all the stuff that we seem to need. So in this future, we have to learn from other cultures and knowledge and give voice to all these other cultures and knowledge that have been ignored so far. We need to learn how to live slower, how to have less is actually good. and how to reconnect with the earth. We've lost, so at least me, I can speak for me, but I know, from people around me in Western societies, we have lost this connection to Mother Earth. And this is what we need to learn from other cultures, to listen to the Pachamama, la Madre Tierra. Sorry, translators. So this is the vision. What do you think? I think it's good. We can be happy with less, with having a more equitable society. And in the process, we can also save the planet. What's to lose, really? So we need to start moving in this direction. But how? I don't know how I'm doing with time, but I'm just going to move now to the how quickly. Hal, I hope I'm doing fine.
Oh, you're doing fine, Marta. No worries.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So how do we do this? How do we move to this future? There's a traditional saying. It said, do we go for revolution or we do reform? Well, I would say we go for both. I would try for everything we can. The representative Zarate that spoke before in the video, he is for reform, obviously. Those that are with more decision-making, that have more decision-making power, they need to act fast, especially in the context of climate change. And these are the states. States have the power to make the necessary this catastrophic climate change and to stop letting all this overhaul of extractive industries that seem to be coming our way. But states are governed by politicians that have to be voted in. Representative Zarate has to be voted in and has to get huge power behind him to push forward all these reforms. So civil society has to be convinced that this future is what we want. Masses of this civil society have to vote for these representatives. And so we have to build this popular majority to support these politicians, not only for a short time, but for all the way. We need them because democratic processes at the moment are for these short periods of time, and politicians just want to make this, they just look for the next 4 3 years. But we need to build this society that actually pushes the right politicians for the long time, for the long process that we need to make all these changes that we need. And there's some positive developments already. I mean, climate change, for example, it's already a very important issue. Many states talked about it in the COPs, but the decisions are really, so they promise many things, but then they're not really taking place, or the decisions are not strong enough to stop the climate change that we're finding, or to stop, for example, the push for extractivism. This is actually not even on the table. And let alone even challenging the status quo. This is the problem I see with this reform line, that there's no really interest in challenging justice or equality. That's not on the table. So the status quo of different power, the power difference is still going to be there. So this would probably mean that the rich will carry on being rich and the poor will have to pay more for all the changes. Being as an activist fighting a new extractivist project, or be a person from Bangladesh trying to fight climate change. So I would say that getting out of extractivism needs much more than reform and policy design. Getting out of extractivism means getting out of capitalism and its strange patterns of colonial, racial, and patriarchal domination. We need mobilization, masses of it, in fact. While all mobilizations matter, they need to be accompanied by a shared vision for a post-capitalist transformation, a universal horizon for radical change. And alliances are crucial in this. We have anti-extractivist movements and environmental justice movements that need to articulate with working class struggles all over the world and struggles against racial and heteropatriarchal domination. This is easier said than done. I'm nearly done, okay? I see you're moving, Ramon. This is easier said than done. Capitalism has this divide and conquer strategy, same as mining companies, really. They constantly pit poor against poor, oppressed against oppressed. Yet we need to ignore this and see that the exploited and the dispossessed of the world, being in the north, being in the south, we have a same common objective. We're in the same struggle. We want to have decision-making power, not to be governed by capricious decisions of faraway countries or companies or even our own state. We want to have a say in how food, energy, and water and resources are produced. That is food sovereignty, energy sovereignty, water and resources sovereignty. We want to produce all these things because we need them. We can plan so that there's enough for everyone. But the drive shouldn't be profit. The drive should be what is needed. And a key word here is enough, having enough. Having enough is the only way I think we can escape capitalism. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. That was inspiring, and also, as we say here, no mean feat to outline a vision beyond extractivism. Yes, bravo, as Leslie says. I really appreciated everything you said there, and it just makes me think two things to initially respond to you. First is that we have to change the way that we think to go beyond extractivism, to get out of that extractivism as a frame of mind. And secondly, that our minds change as we act, and that so many communities around the world have had this experience of moving from apathy or some position of sort of neutrality to a position of defending the earth and of changing their minds through struggling against these unwanted projects. So I think as we act, we change, our minds change, and we find new ways of being in solidarity with each other. So thank you, Marta. I'm sure I know there are some questions coming in about that, which we'll address later. But we now will hear from Ramon, certainly last but not least, and we're really looking forward to hearing what Ramon has to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Hal, and everyone for the organization and also for being here today. So I think that the previous speakers have told a lot about particular cases and also about like a more general perspective of what like this a post-extractivist future would be like, right? So I think that something interesting is that maybe we've seen that extractivism is more than just extraction itself, or like the mineral extraction or the extractive operations, right? So that seems pretty clear. And in that sense, I think that something that will also be interesting to take into consideration is like seeing extractivism as a phenomenon that it's historically given. So what we face today, it's like a sort of like green extractivism wave, but it's been like a reproduction of this model and this kind of like this mindset when it's so natural for everyone to imagine or to accept that some territories have to be exploited. In general terms, we can say that it's in the global south, but also like it's also good to know that there is like when we speak about global south, it means that there is also like a south in the north and north in the south, right? It's not just like black or white. And there is this concept of internal colonialism proposed by Carlos González Casanova from UNAM in Mexico. That is very interesting, especially today, because we see that rural and indigenous territories in countries like the US or Canada, Spain, Portugal, Serbia, and other regions that we are not necessarily used to see as exploited by extractivism are today under the scope, are in the scope of the green extractivism. So then I think that in order to see different future, it's also very important actually to understand this extraction, to understand the models of dispossession. Also, in particular, that's also very important. We cannot change something that we don't really understand. So I think that it's extremely necessary today to identify the actors, social, institutional, corporate actors that actually are behind extractivism, and how they interact, like their relations, and also not only because it's good to know, or because we need to identify which company we are struggling against, but it's also because we need to understand how these, especially the corporations, actually they manage to influence our governments. That's something that our comrade just said, Luis, actually, and the mechanisms actually that allow them to interfere, that allow them to decide for us, and how this neoliberal conception of governance is actually replacing the role of local communities, but also the role of the state itself in countries like ours. In this sense, I think that we need to also understand how social engineering works, how in the context of the energy transition, greenwashing actually is also working, how important it got for extractivism to expand and to justify itself, not only at a local level, but also at the national and international level, to see how complex actually these new relations are, and how sometimes actually some of the solutions are not just the solutions, but also some of the institutions that work on these kind of issues are also maybe part of extractivism, because if we understand that extractivism is not only extraction, but all the mindsets and the thinking, the ideas, ideologies, relations that operate in favor of global accumulation, we can see also that sometimes not all or not everyone is really against extractivism, and sometimes extractivism is disguised and we just don't see it, and that's also very dangerous. I think that today, is especially when it comes to green extractivism, we need to be really careful, and and not and maybe being more critical sometimes, because today all these new mechanisms that actually are an answer to all these critiques actually can become actually can operate in favor of extractivism at the end of the day, and that's part of the problem for me, and I think it's also very important and a conversation that we need to have, especially in the social movements and spaces like Yes to Life, Not to Mining. And I was also going to talk about the relation between extraction and growth, or post-extractivism and degrowth. But I think that Marta already shared that, and was very very clear and very inspiring on how we need to actually kind of like connect these struggles, how important it is. And in this sense, actually, I think that it's also interesting to see how global solidarity, international solidarity is as important as the actions taken at a local level. With this, that we need to somehow decolonize the energy or the global climate international agenda. We need to decolonize the transition. And for us to be done, actually, the actions taken at local scale are not enough. Sometimes, actually, we've seen that after a couple of years, exposing the contradictions of green extractivism or green capitalism, the projects are still there. Actually, there are more projects, or the current projects are expanding the territories. And today, with all the social engineering and the greenwashing, the same companies that are destroying the ecosystems, that are corrupting the politics and so on, are getting away with it, and they are still there, and they will probably actually expand. And actually, their value in the stock market is increasing. So the green extractivism is, in spite of everything, it's still more attractive for investors who are actually experts in risk management. So we need to kind of like see that reality, I think, and at some point get the international climate movement know more about this, and understand better what extractivism really means, and actually ask itself whether it is extractivist or not. So this is also like about questioning green growth. It's questioning in our at national scale, I'd say, at local level also. It's also a struggle against extractivism because it's part of the culture. So for many in our countries in the global south, extractivism is natural. It's the way actually to buy social welfare. It's the way to buy better pensions. All the new extractivism that Maristela Svampa explains so well. And today, green extractivism adds to all that the idea that through more extraction, we can also kind of like save the planet, which is a contradiction itself. But if we see in detail, actually, we will see also that this idea of saving the planet through technology, it's like an idea that it's accepted by everyone, but we need to also question that. Is it the only way to save the planet? So that's also that it's part of a sort of like new common sense everywhere, and it's also it also comes along with the idea that the sort of like the responsible extraction or sustainable mining, it's today like a new form of mining, that it's not gonna repeat the mistakes from other ways of mining, but in practice it's the same or even worse. So that's also very dangerous. And maybe like a final element that would be part of like a post-extractivist future for us in OPSAL is, and not only us, of course, but I think in the case of Chile, it's like how actually the social movements are today part of the new constitution, the writing of the new constitution, and how also like fortunately we have a president that is quite open to have these discussions. It's something that never happened before in our history, and after the very bad experiences, especially with the last president, we can see like the new ways to change the legal framework that would allow us actually to make some concrete change. In that sense, like the new constitution, for example, is discussing a new like regulation for water, which is important because in the case like what I do is like I work in the defense of Indian salt flats and wetlands affected by lithium and copper mining mostly. So for us, like recognizing, for example, that lithium brines contain water, and that water needs to be protected, for example, we change everything. Also, like the use of water, the priorities for the use of water, whether the priority as is today, for example, is for copper mining. Maybe if we return some of the water rights to local communities, indigenous or non-indigenous, who benefit from water, for example, for agriculture, which means more food sovereignty, for example, that would definitely change things. If there is more participation of indigenous peoples, not only communities, but indigenous peoples, like as a whole in the politics, that can also, the conditions for extraction can also change. But for that, we also need to change like what we could understand as an economic model, that it's based on the extraction and the export of common goods. So all this is being discussed today in Chile, and I think it's fascinating how we actually can get to put some of our ideas and demands in this discussion for the new constitution. So it's something that, of course, had a social cost, a high cost actually. So today, thanks to the people actually who allowed this constitution to happen, actually, are giving us the chance to change things. And then with maybe more specific to mining, with this new president today, it's somebody who comes from social movements, actually. It's open to the creation, for example, as like a national company of lithium and other minerals, non-metallic minerals. So I don't think that that's the solution like itself, but it could be like much better than a 100% private system as it's today. So none of these actually processes, like the new constitution or having this new president, it's a solution by itself. Actually, about the reform and the revolution. So I think it's both, and also like local actions and are also part of it. So we don't need to decide one or another. So all our contributions to this process. So I agree with that, and I think the same in this case. We are more in particular, maybe, and also in the context of the new constitution, since the new constitution so far, if it's approved by this national referendum in a couple of months, will recognize the rights of nature. So again, like rights of nature themselves are not the solution, but that will actually allow us, for example, to keep working in a law for the protection of Indian salt-flats and wetlands, which is a project of ours, Topsal. And but for that to happen, we need a new legal framework. So I think that changing the laws, like getting involved in the formal politics is also part of it, but never, of course, forget that we need to also work in our own territories, educate ourselves, like create this dialogue of knowledges, and also work for this epistemological justice in order not to have only one perspective or one way to understand reality, but all of them. And yeah, I think that maybe just to finish, it's like maybe not separating the struggle for human rights, indigenous rights, or the rights of nature. As Eduardo Galeano say, they are part of the same struggle. And today, in the face of, in the light of actually this crisis, in the case of Chile, at least, of the new constitution with this new presidency as well. For us, I think it's maybe a time that we could have never imagined before to fight and to put these ideas in order to think or to imagine, to not only imagine, maybe also to create, like materially, a post-extractive future for Chile, and maybe like from there to the rest of Latin America, and why not the rest of the world. So yeah, that's my intervention. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ramon. So good, and it's been said in the comments to hear about how things are changing in Chile and all that you've done and Opsal is doing there and in the region more broadly. I love what you said about, I think you called it a new common sense. And we started the global gathering with a talk from Nimo Bassi, who came up with the name of our network, and he expressed a good bit of common sense, which is relevant to this. He said, when you're in a hole, stop digging. And we could sum it up like that, maybe. So we have 15 minutes for some questions, but also if anybody feels inspired to share their own visions of the future, please either put your hand up at the bottom or mention it in the comments, and we can sort of unmute you and bring you into the space so that you can speak. But we do have 2 questions to begin with, which I'll read one after the other. The first one is addressed to Marta, but anybody should feel free to answer. And thank you to Catherine for this question. So the question is, this is a great positive vision. Love basic income, less hours, job guarantee, and more time. Have you had the chance to test test ideas with your communities? The language of this vision is critical. Marta, I don't know if you want to respond to that one, but before you do, I'm going to read another question, which is for Luis, but also I think could refer to Ramon as well. And that question is from Guadalupe, thank you. And it's, how do you see from the energy transition in your territory, and how is this being pushed globally? How do you see whether this is causing conflict in your territory, and what kind of support and solidarity would you expect or would you want? So maybe Marta, we can come to you first, and then Ramon and Luis, if you want to follow.
Yes, thank you for that question. I don't know where they are, so I could read them before. But yeah, so it was whether it's been tested. There's a basic income and less working hours and all these different policies. They've been modeled like all together and with good results, but they've been tested, each one of them separately. So there's, in fact, less working hours is even being put forward by companies, which also think that their workers, I don't remember which company it was. It was quite a big company that was actually testing it, and meaning that the workers are going to be happier also working less hours a day and more productive. If you work less hours, it's also you become more productive. And the basic income has been tested in different places. It's been tested, this escapes me, but I think it was a huge test. I don't remember. I don't know if it was Finland. Then it was one in Barcelona has been done. There was actually another test I know of in Namibia, and with very positive results. The thing though with the growth ideas or with any post-capitalist ideas is that they all need to come together to make sense. So the main problem with the basic income, and the results are amazing. People with just a little bit of money, they feel like they can start a small business, and then that pushes a lot more. They can be more creative. They can start a lot of businesses that are not energy and materially intensive, but more services. And so the results are very positive. The problem is how you pay for that. So you need to, in order to pay for this, you need this green tax reform that challenges and pushes all these bad, energy intensive companies to change into other sectors. So also, if you don't have a more democratic process, maybe this means that this can be done with one party, extreme right party, or turning to more of a dictatorship. So you need, the problem with the growth is that you need to act in many different areas at the same time in order for it to be doable and to be desirable. This issue of justice is very important. So you need to have the power to make basic income available to all those that need it, not only just the sector of society. Yeah. So yeah, it's been tested, but just some policies on their own, they're effective, but they need to be, you need to bring them together for it to make sense.
Thank you, Marta. Yeah, it reminds me what you're saying of something that Alberto Acosta, that the scholar from Latin America, said. He said that degrowth and post-extractivism are two sides of the same cultural transformation. I think the clue is in the word cultural. It has to be broad across the whole culture. So I'll return to that question for Luis and Ramon, which is, how do you see the energy transition being pushed in your territory, and how do you evaluate that as a conflict? What kind of solidarity would you need?
Luis, ¿quieres comentar o paso yo nomás?
Do you want to go ahead, Luis, or should I start?
Okay, I can start maybe.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting because actually the energy transition today sounds like a privilege, for example, I don't know, like San Pedro de Atacama, it's where Atacama Salt Flats, SQM, Albert Marley, and two huge copper projects operate. Copper also being a green mineral, let's say. There is no energy transition, of course. Even access to energy is still not solved for everyone. There's still people who live, especially in the urban area, people not necessarily indigenous, but working class people who work in tourism. Especially, they don't have access to potable water, or they don't have access to electricity, actually. Electricity, anyways, the power plant in this territory works with fuel. So even even if the sun exposition that lithium corporations bribe so much about being their only energy source, that energy source it's not actually even for the people. So maybe, yeah, so in that sense, the climate justice perspective, and actually Marta said something about the environmental debt, for example. Maybe would be interesting actually to see, because the peoples that today are pushed to the sacrifice in the name of this transition is people that should be being compensated by climate change as victims of a climate change that they didn't cause. And they don't even have access to proper energy or clean energy, even clean water, actually. So I don't know, I'd say just the energy transition itself seems something so alien for these territories. And just to finish about the solidarity that would be interesting to have, it's more than doing something about an energy transition for local communities in general in the global south. I think that would be interesting is to point out how much energy will be needed actually for this corporate energy transition, for all the electric cars, to electrify the economy societies in the global north, and how much actually emissions that energy actually can cause, and how actually this energy, this huge need for energy is today becoming a new source of conflict, especially in the case of green hydrogen. So that's another conflict, another issue that is actually starting to provoke conflicts in the case of Chile, I'm gonna say, in the south of Chile, in Mapuche indigenous territories, like green hydrogen plants, and it's gonna be the same in the Atacama Desert, same desert that is exploited for copper and lithium already, and was exploited for saltpeter before. Today, because of the sun exposure, actually, it's very attractive for so-called green hydrogen that big economies like Germany, for example, need. But for that, you need water, and if you need water in the desert, then you go to the sea. So you need to desalinize water and so on. So it's a long chain, and I think that's the problem of the capitalistic conception of the transition, and how actually the contradictions of capitalism will always arise from these projects, independent of the specific case. It's the logics, it's the mechanisms that lay behind capitalism. And unfortunately, within this mindset, I think that we cannot actually find the right solutions for anyone. I mean, it's not only about the environmental justice locally, it's about global justice. These false solutions are not going to solve the problem anyway. And everyone, we all need to reduce emissions. We all need to overcome this crisis, and it's not going to happen with these mechanisms.
Thank you, Ramon. Luis, ¿te gustaría responder?
No tengo traducción a español. No puedo entender.
I'm sorry, I can't access Spanish translation.
Sí. ¿Quieres que le diga la pregunta? Luis, ¿te digo la pregunta?
Sí, por favor.
Sí, nos estaban diciendo la pregunta de cómo veíamos.
We're just asking the
la
question again
transición.
because Luis was having a hard time listening to the translation. Oh.
Ok. Luis, la pregunta era cómo veía la transición en tu territorio y qué acciones de solidaridad internacional crees que serían pertinentes en ese contexto.
Thank you.
Las acciones que se realizan acá
what we're seeing in our territory,
es poco porque somos
we're a small community here.
La idea es
The idea is to have support, actions to be able to protect our territory on an international level. One action could be to consume less. We believe that consumers are there that value that value too much copper, lithium. Meanwhile, in our territory, they're getting rid of entire villages. They're polluting. They're ruining all of our needs.
Acércate más el micrófono, Luis, que no te oímos bien. Ay, mejor, gracias.
A ver, entonces,
What we're worried about
es de que se dé un respaldo de
we need like an international, we need international support.
no valorar estos materiales que
like a new wave of people not taking into importance, not making so important these materials that are destructing our village, that are destructing nature, that are destructing life. just because of exaggerated use of these materials for being greedy, like copper, gold, that are only useful for, reserve. We don't believe that that's the correct way to live. It's not leveled out. It's unfair. It's an unfair way of living.
Yes, Luis. We have a very short period of time left, but before we go, we have a question from Andrew, and after that, I'll talk a bit about what's coming next. So Andrew, I'm going to slightly paraphrase your question, and then I can see Ramon's typed an answer. So maybe if Marta or Luis wants to add, but the question is, assuming that radical change is a long-term aim that we all want to work towards, what should we do in the short term? How do we tackle the impacts of mining tomorrow and next week at the same time as working towards a post-extractivist, post-capitalist future? And Marta, maybe I'll come to you because Ramon's already typed an answer there.
Yes, it's a very good question, and it's also related to this idea of reform and radical change. So we need to work at all levels at the same time, no? Ramon was also saying that. So just carry on what we're doing in a way, but do it more and convince more people to act in all levels. So we need to support local communities struggling against mining conflicts, create these alliances, invite more people to this network and to other networks, no? Support them. And because this is happening now, is what you say, Andrew, this is happening now, we need to help them. And the fight is long term. And it's a bit what I was saying, the more we bring people into this fight, the more people get convinced about doing it. There's this lithium fight in Spain, and you have people that are right-wing people fighting to stop the mine next to them, and because this is people that wouldn't think of themselves as activists or environmentalists, but because they're fighting this fight, they're slowly changing their mindset and starting to realize the impacts of mining elsewhere. So the more you do, it's like they say, you recycle, people slowly by recycling, which is not a big thing, but by recycling every day, they start changing their mindset. So every little thing helps. But having said that, recycling is not enough. We need to convince people to actually act, to mobilize, not only against mining, but against many different injustices happening in the world. I think we need a more activist society. That's the way I see it. And, here in Australia, activist is a dirty word, but we need to revert this and actually, the activist is also being an activist is very fulfilling. You feel happy when you know that you're acting towards the right thing. And then we need huge campaigns, I think, in this activism that point to the long term. What we really need is a radical change, not just small changes, small legislative changes. And I think when we were talking on this energy transition that we need, I think a key message from communities impacted by this energy transition, by green extractivism, is you have to fight and defend your lands. But the narrative is very important. And I think the key message for all these industrialized countries that want all these minerals from you is, hey, you need to reduce your own energy and material consumption. Don't come to us for the minerals, to maintaining, a renewable energy. You need to reduce your energy and material consumption. I think this is a key message that we need to be spreading everywhere all the time. There's not enough minerals to fit 100% renewable future. There's just not enough. So we need to reduce our energy and material consumption. This is in the north, especially in the north countries, everywhere, but also in the south, because as Ramon was saying, there's people consuming excessively everywhere. So this is a key message that we need to keep, because even the European Union that is coming with all these new, this green transformation, this is in the small print, but it's not even said. So I think this is the key message, that it's then points to all these the growth futures, and then this needs to be just. So this energy and material the reduction needs to be just. It doesn't mean that the poor don't consume and the rich keep consuming. So this is the two key things: energy and material consumption reduction and just. And I think this is a narrative that all communities everywhere fighting extractive industries need to be saying, and in order to convince and get more people involved. So it's a two-step fight.
Thank you, Marta. I think as we're a few minutes over time, and Ramon has typed there, we will leave it there. But obviously, I think the main thing is that this conversation needs to continue. Over the next 3 months, we're going to, YES to Life No to Mining and our regional contact people are going to be continuing to keep this as an open space. We'll be in contact very soon, and there will be other ways in which you can more actively participate in these discussions, continue the conversation, put your ideas in, share your experiences from all the different parts of the world in which our network exists. And the end result of that is we're trying to, through this process, co-create a long-term strategy for YES to Life No to Mining that draws on the collective wisdom of this network that we've built over the last 8 to 10 years. So we invite you to continue to engage in this space, to look out, check your emails, watch out for our name there. And next, we're going to keep this link open. And for anybody who has the time to stay, anybody who has the inclination to stay, we're going to be doing a bit of a cultural celebration, a solidarity video, which is going to run for a while, and that's going to be set up by my colleagues. But all that remains for me to do is to say a huge thank you to Luis, Marta, Ramon, and to Representative Zarate and our friends in the Philippines who brought his voice into this space, because it's been an incredibly rich conversation. And for me, at least, I'm feeling very positive, because I think, you know, Ramon and Marta and Luis and Representative Zarate all shared cause for optimism, cause to show that where these thoughts take root, change can happen, and that you know, we're all together on that road. So thank you to our interpreters and all of the tech support and everyone in YES to Life No to Mining. And as I said, just keep this link open if you want to stay on for the solidarity and cultural celebration. Mariana, do you want to say anything more about that before we kick off? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Hal, and thank you
everyone.
Great. Well, it has been so inspiring to spend the last 3 or 4 days traveling around the world, listening to incredible experiences and testimonies on how to defend our territory from extractive industries. This recalls the purpose of this network, of this great global solidarity network we're all part of. And it's connecting people across the globe so they can share their strategies and their struggles and their stories and inspire each other and know that they're not alone. Because when we face these huge giants of the mining corporations, we feel very lonely, and it is a global struggle. And that's what YES to Life No to Mining recalls and remembers us. So yeah, it has been amazing, and in order to celebrate that and honor that, we our great Nat Lori has put together a beautiful video of demonstrations across the globe of how to show solidarity with artistic and theatrical and musical inspirations. So we have a demonstration from each region, and we want to share this video with all of you. If you have time to stay, please do stay with us. And this is not just a video we want to share with you, but we want to invite all of you to participate in a solidarity demonstration over the next 3 months, while we're going to have the Feedloop platform open for all grassroots movements across the globe to self-organize conferences and conversations and sessions. And so there's going to be a space to share solidarity as well. So please stay with us a little while to take a look at these beautiful demonstrations. And I'm gonna pass it over to my colleague Mirko, who is going to explain to us how to participate in these solidarity cultural demonstrations over the next 3 months.
Hello, dear all. So thanks, Mariana. Thanks, Nat. Thanks for the video, which we will show shortly. And so we would like to invite you, first of all, yes, to take a moment to celebrate really the acts of resistance and resurgence, and actually to acknowledge that what was spoken about this evening, so and of the previous 3 days, is that actually extractivism is so deeply embedded in economy, politics, and to get out of it and then to move into post-extractivism, post-growth, degrowth. Actually, this implies also actually a cultural transformation. So we need to envision these stories and realities and histories. So I invite you to contribute a testimonial to the Yes to Life, No to Mining family. Tell us your story, read a poem, share a song, create art, tell us about your resistance to extractivism, tell us about your vision of a world beyond extractivism, and share your messages of solidarity. Solidarity has the power to turn a voice into the movement. And we will now travel once more, as we did over these days, from we'll take you through from direct action in Toronto, in so-called Canada, Turtle Island, through Colombia, Portugal, Niger Delta, Philippines, Papua New Guinea, Sepik River, and finally back again to Mi'kmaq First Nation territories in Nova Scotia. So please, we can watch now. The videos will take about I think it is 40 minutes.
Dear friend, I write to you as a stranger in a far-off land to express my solidarity with you and your community. I grew up in the countryside around Doima in Colombia, watching the rice fields change color over the horizon and beautiful sunsets over the Cordillera, the Andes mountains. My father has worked the rice fields his whole life. The sense of belonging to this land has marked my heart since I was a little girl. 2 years ago, a huge mining corporation arrived in town, exploring the possibility of building a processing plant to remove the gold from the rock from one of the largest gold mines in the world, La Colosa.
Han descubierto un gran potencial de oro en el Cerro La Colosa.
No queremos la minería en nuestro municipio. No queremos ese falso porvenir, esa falsa riqueza que ellos nos vienen ofreciendo.
Y estamos hablando que están poniendo en riesgo el recurso humano que es el agua. no es justo con el campesino, no es justo con el ciudadano, no es justo con los habitantes de Colombia lo que están haciendo.
We looked around and we saw other communities affected by mining for gold, minerals, and fossil fuels. We saw communities standing up for their rights. I was so moved to watch your resistance so many miles away in Balcom. If we stand back and do nothing, it is our children and grandchildren who will bear the cost.
I've read about the health effects of living close to gas flares and close to oil, unconventional oil and gas extraction.
There have been so many lies and so many false promises from the government and the industry. Nevertheless, the message is getting through.
We've got a reservoir here that is one of only 4 that serves the whole of the southeast. So if that reservoir is contaminated, it's something like 55,000 homes will be affected by that.
We want to manifest our support and express our solidarity to the people of Balcom and to all those communities around the world who are resisting mining. Those who are standing up for their ancestral territories, their farmlands, fishing communities, sacred places, rivers, villages, and homes. We stand with those who feel responsible for the legacy that we leave future generations. Let mining-affected communities, divided by geography but united in resistance, share their warmth, wisdom, encouragement, and courage with one another, in solidarity.
Bueno, yo les diría a todas las otras partes donde de pronto la minería quiera entrar, que formen resistencia, que se unan, que sean unidos y que luchen por un objetivo que es no permitir que las multinacionales entren a destruir todo lo que un día nos dejaron nuestros ancestros. Entonces, que se unan, que sean unidos y que luchen por sus objetivos.
We're here outside the world's largest mining convention. Toronto has shown out by the hundreds to say no to the business as usual of this industry. We will not allow their ongoing colonization, land theft, violence, environmental destruction to continue. FEDAC itself estimates about 25,000 attendees are joining them this year from at least 130 countries. At least 30% of the attendees, they say, come from outside Canada, so this is truly a global conference. Toronto is the global capital of mining finance, and Canada in general is the global hub of mining. Over 2/3 of mining companies around the world are based here in Canada, so we're right here in the belly of the beast.
Their business as usual is a world where the rights of capital always take precedence over human rights.
We're here to disrupt as much as we can because there are indigenous communities all over the world impacted by these companies. All of these corporations are connected to the larger infrastructure of resource extraction.
Extractive companies think they can hide in this convention center and literally give each other awards for corporate social responsibility, for sustainability. They are holding glitzy galas all this weekend and this week to literally celebrate each other's greenwashing and charitable efforts.
job. If you don't mine it, you don't have copper. If you don't have copper, you have nothing. Nothing in the city, nothing in this world runs. Don't you get it?
Oh, I get it. Don't you get it?
I have a 3-year-old child standing right there at this protest. I will not let this industry render this planet unlivable for their generation and for generations to come.
This industry is leading us directly down a path towards a planet that is literally unlivable.
We're all going to face consequences due to these mining industries being able to self-regulate and have the government's protection because it is enforcing a climate crisis on all of us. This is a genocidal act on the futures of all children.
Built on the removal of indigenous people for resource extraction.
I'm a land defender from the Aamjiwnaang First Nation. I'm a Anishinaabe Kwa. Aamjiwnaang First Nation is located in Sarnia, Ontario, where Chemical Valley surrounds my community. I see refineries and flares. I grew up being exposed to chemicals on a daily basis. Speaking up for our health and environment is unfortunately what most Indigenous people across the world are having to do because of corporations being able to meet and to expand and grow and maintain a level of violence across the world thanks to Canada.
porque soy como el árbol libre que va creciendo mirando al sol. Hoy por eso un nuevo verso ha brotado en mi canción, y es un verso que reclama defender lo que yo soy. Soy del Tolima, de donde brotan aguas sagradas, vida y belleza que desde siempre nos acompañan. ¿Por qué pretenden minar su entraña? ¿Por qué la vida por muerte cambian? ¿Por qué el cianuro? ¿Por qué me atacan? Yo soy el árbol, yo soy montaña. ¿Por qué pretenden minar su entraña? ¿Por qué la vida por muerte cambian? ¿Por qué el cianuro? ¿Por qué me atacan? Yo soy el árbol, yo soy montaña. Llevo en el alma un río y una montaña en el corazón, porque soy como el árbol libre que va creciendo mirando al sol. Hoy por eso un nuevo verso ha brotado en mi canción, y es un verso que reclama defender lo que yo soy. Soy del Tolima, desde el Nevado mi voz yo lanzo. Retumba un coro por sus montañas y por su llano, que en esta tierra queremos vida, que nadie puede vender montañas, que por la suerte de nuestros hijos todo el Tolima en firme avanza. Que en esta tierra queremos vida, que nadie puede vender montañas, que por la suerte de nuestros hijos todo el Tolima en firme avanza.
A música. Então, e não nos olha lá ao barulho que vem de lá de trás? Ou já acabou?
Eu já não vejo há muito tempo.
É agora.
Barroso, 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 o povo tem de se ouvir. Querem dar cabo das serras, Barroso, não podemos permitir. Barroso, 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 o povo tem de se ouvir. Querem dar cabo das serras, Barroso, não podemos permitir. Tua terra dá fartura, sustento para o ano inteiro, a alegria de quem vive em Barroso não se compra com dinheiro. Barroso, 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 o povo tem de se unir. Querem dar cabo das terras, Barroso, não podemos permitir. Barroso, 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 o povo tem de se unir. Querem dar cabo das terras, Barroso, não podemos permitir. O teu chão é chão sagrado, é o lugar onde eu nasci. Podem dar-me o mundo todo, ai Barroso, ninguém me arranca daqui. Barroso, barroso, barroso. O povo vai resistir, querem dar cabo das terras, Barroso, não podemos permitir. Barroso, 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 o povo vai resistir, querem dar cabo das terras, Barroso, não podemos permitir, não podemos permitir. O povo vai resistir, o povo vai resistir.
For a very, very long, long time, our people are suffering. For a long time, our people are waiting. So many things been happening, so many years gone by. I know my people suffering, I know my people cry. From bomb blast to explosion, food poisoning the nation. What is the conclusion? Is there no solution? We need fish, we don't need oil, yeah. We need soil, we don't need oil, yeah. Start drilling oil wells, oh. Let's want us to be friends, oh. We need fish, we don't need oil, yeah. We need soil, we don't need oil, yeah. Start drilling oil wells, oh. Let's want us to be friends, oh. Came to steal from us. They took innocent lives, oh. Haven't they done enough? When do we realize, oh? They need to clean the land. We only seek for justice. We say no to black tide. No more. They need to clean the land. We only seek for justice. We say say no to black tide. Black tide, no more. Start drilling all your wells, oh. Earth want us to be friends, oh. We need fish, we don't need oil, yeah. We need soil, we don't need oil, yeah. Start drilling all your wells, oh. Earth want us to be friends, oh.
For us, growing up along the river and people belonging to the river it's a spirit that is living. So we have languages and we've got songs and stories that says, you know, it could wake up and it talks to you, and it sleeps, it dreams, those kind of stories that my mom tells me. And all its life forms, both plants and animals, are connected to us. And that's really important. That's really important. It's my identity, and that's going to be killed.
Emino naplo waswas na spila antaplo dislawara na live antaplo wara osen em tok osen. That means emino representing you, interest plo wara na life plo bibla.
All of the mining that is happening in Papua New Guinea has been exploitative to the environment and the people. We haven't seen any significant improvement or changes in our lives. The Bougainville copper, there was a civil war, more than 10,000 people died. BHP Steel, that mined in Oktedi in Fly River, that river is dead. Then we have Pogara, they still have violence up there. So these are the fears.
Before lol white money come, this la haples and haples lo woki law.
I've received 4 death threats. I could be taken out, or members of my volunteers could be harmed, and that's really something that has hit me. But I think Sepik River is important, and my livelihood and the livelihood of people I love and my country is important.
What is the true development? What money or my ground, my heart, my river?
Now you like him money, you like him one him kai. Now you me talk yes lo money, you be killing life lo tumuna blum plakanti.
Em baim la fight ol slawara na baim la dai ol slawara blum em daso. Baim la fight.
saka dito kami pinanganak. O saan galing yung magulang mo? Yung magulang dito sa aking ama, dito ako pinanganak. Mabilang mo ba kung saan pa galing, yung kung saan ilang henerasyon na ang nagpasa-pasa dito bago kami andito ngayon.
Nan kwa, nan emi nitagu-taguan hito an pinamana na dan amod mihan dia dapat lang emi depensahan ya protektaran tehitoy ng pangalaan mihi kun bibiyag mihi pamilya mi apapumi ingga-inggana.
Magawa ang gobyerno ng probinsya, kami na lang ang magdesisyon, pag-usapan namin kung anong gawin namin para mahinto ito talagang operasyon.
Kaslaat kumaken ka udanong hanapik sa tagayo sa kagpapabain ka na. Kadwa tidak ijay bantay nagayus nagpababa ingana ijay bye-bye uway urayan yati ikastam uray man nula pedam mabiru kanalata dalanti waya-waya uway uray man numabulanan uray man numatawanan isulat ati madalunan bye-bye kalawaan Ika-iyarikan na tidanong anapisa dangadang ti umili sigurado agbaligi uway may dadanas na umili bumangbangon lumablaban isudati sa diri pa ng baliw ti kagimungan uway uray anya mantirikat mabayag mantigubat isulat ati madanunan nawaya masakbayan uway
Once pristine,
Once untouched, once pure, all of that's no longer there anymore. Stripped down, torn apart, chipped away piece of our hearts, yet still we breathe. Like the wind we still move, like the waves we rise high, like the sun we never die. We will stay standing.